We have been talking about rugby non-stop really since 1 o'clock today, so why not move on to some of the other stories? And there are some interesting stories in the papers today that we'll get to, starting down with Cheltenham.
Bit of Cheltenham stuff, yeah, maybe a bit more up my street, but there's almost a crossover in the team here. There's good Cheltenham stuff across all the Sundays, and Tommy Conlon has a good piece in the Sunday Window on some of the media coverage, but probably drawn a bit to Dennis Walsh's piece in the Sunday Times about the green power. Is Irish dominance good for Cheltenham? Because a bit like, I suppose, the rugby yesterday, they're the Irish trainers is like this clinical winning machine. We're used to sort of a certain Irish way of winning things. There's always that last minute or drama, or there's a sort of we almost see ourselves as unprofessional at times in terms of how we do things, and we joke about it. But actually, what you've seen this week is just the best. And in the horse racing context, in terms of Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott and what they're doing, it's incredible. It's just relentless. They're breaking records with no respect for almost what's gone before, and it's led to quite a fallout. Indeed, a fallout across the water, where they're now their press on Friday and Saturday were doing stuff about, we need to look at how these horses are being handicapped. Is there reviews of what we're doing? Even through in a couple of references that we need to get doping procedures on the same lines as what we do over here. Sort of trying to plant a seed, or trying to, I don't know what the game plan was. Well, no, they weren't. They were just saying that the testing, the way in which the testing regulations are done here are different to the UK, and it's just the timing of it. It almost leads people to make that assumption. And I know there was actually one or two trainers on Twitter and stuff. Ger Lyons, an Irish flat trainer, went mad over actually the coverage, saying, so you're almost trying to engage in innuendo here.
Is the handicapping thing dodgy?
No, it's not. I don't think so. I just think that there's so many good horses over here at the moment, without going into the handicap system in great detail, that Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott have so many good horses that the lesser lights in their stable are, because they're getting beaten here, they're being rated accordingly, and then you drop them into races in England and they're just at a higher level.
The headline on that piece, on Dennis Walsh's piece, is Green Power, is Irish dominance good for Cheltenham? Does anyone care in Cheltenham whether it's an Irish horse or an English horse that wins?
Well, it's strange. It's getting to the point now where that was a bigger story. In 1989, Ireland had no winners at Cheltenham, and the whole theme of racing was any good Irish horse would be bought by some rich English owner, and the Irish wins did become a bit like victories because they were put upon, and this was a strike for the small man.
They were actually, though, the small man,
and now they're the Man City. Now they are they've got. I mean, ultimately, what's happened here is that you've got some very good trainers, and the big owners are now getting their horses trained in Ireland.
So you have three big owners in JP McManus, Michael O'Leary, and Rich Ritchie.
And Willie Mullins has a couple of other high flying owners as well.
Why then is the investment not coming into English racing anymore from the rich former owners who would bring horses to Paul Nicholls or to Nicky Henderson or anywhere else?
There's question marks. I think again there's the prize money over there wouldn't be as good. I think there'd be issues with the funding of the sport, and there is just this feeling that if you have a good horse and you want him to be, where you have a decision over where you want him to be trained, there's many reasons to go to Ireland over England. The quality of the trainers, the structure of the programme, and so on. But I mean, there is a point in some of the, is the Irish dominance a good thing? And I think it doesn't matter whether it's English or Irish. I think maybe what people like about racing sometimes, even people who aren't big into the sport. No, you wouldn't be a huge fan, Hugh, but there would be the little man story. Like, think of a horse like Denoli, who was an Irish horse in the 90s, Tom Foley, a trainer from Carlow. Everyone got behind it. It was a public horse. I guess when Michael O'Leary has another winner, there's no real romance in that. It's like, oh great, rich man wins another race. And what the Cheltenham probably lacked this year was a couple of those stories where there was this small yard with 3 or 4 horses coming and upsetting the big boys. There wasn't too much of it about that, and it's now led to this debate over where the sport is going. But and that's certainly there's a valid point, but I think at the same time, the counterpoint I would say, you look at someone like Gordon Elliott. He's not from racing stock. He's not someone who was born into the game. He's like a self-made man in terms of his training credentials. Like I remember 7 or 8 years ago, even being part of a syndicate that had a horse, brutal, sort of very low level, and Gordon Elliott would train anything. At that stage, he would go to the unglamorous race meetings. He'd be flying horses over to Perth and Sedgefield and all these places. Yeah, he was the
Scotland.
Yeah, and
did Gordon Elliott train your horse?
He took over one of our horses. There was Barrio, and he was trained by another trainer. Wasn't doing that well, and Gordon Elliott did such a good job. He took him from finishing around 20th out of 25 to like 7th. And that was as far as that was as far as Barrio.
Where's Barrio now? Did you go to the punditry?
I have no idea. No, he didn't. He doesn't have a column or anything like that. So. Like
is he alive?
He's got. I don't know. In fairness, Elliott did the right thing.
Do you not have an emotional attachment to these horses that you own?
I care to a point. In fairness to Elliott, he actually did the right thing by us. I mean, it's only a small thing. He wouldn't even remember this, but he took the horse to race in England in a lower grade race, and basically got an offer and sold it. And didn't string us along for like 6 months or a year and take our fees for a bad horse. Effectively he did the right thing by us. And then, but you go from that and that low level stuff to 7 years later or whatever it is, and he's training 8 winners at Cheltenham on the strength of his training ability, and he is the guy. His strike rate relative to numbers to runners is brilliant, and like this guy he's a colossus. And Mullins is the same, but Mullins probably has come from a bit more of a racing background. I think Elliott is an amazing story, but is it good for Cheltenham? I mean, I'm not bored of having a lot of good horses trained in Ireland. It means when you go to Leopardstown last month to that Dublin Racing Festival, you're watching like elite racing. You turn on English racing some Saturdays and it's pretty poor fare.
Maybe that is actually the greater issue. It's not how this affects Cheltenham, because Cheltenham will always be fine. The behemoth that's become, you're always going to get 100,000 people there on the Friday. It's actually those run-of-the-mill meetings on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that they've little or no prize money, which again maybe is one of the bigger issues for English racing.
It's not competitive.
Whereas there used to be, I think the frustration now in Irish racing is that the English raiders don't come over to Leopardstown or Punchestown because they're probably frightened off because the horses simply aren't good enough.
No, and it is true though. I mean, I think for the smaller racing owners here, it can be difficult. You will turn on the race on a Saturday or Sunday and it'll be 4 or 5 Willie Mullins winners or Elliott winners, and it's that bit harder to get your shot at glory. And even during the week, it's mentioned Dennis Walsh's piece, there was like a sales in Cheltenham on Thursday, and all the top lots, it's sort of eye-watering figures. Like JP McManus paid 330,000 sterling for a horse. Next up, Willie Mullins paying 240,000.
Where does the sales happen?
This was at Cheltenham. They have a sales on Thursday after racing of like young point-to-pointers and stuff, all mostly coming from Ireland. And I mean, all the big shots are obviously in the one place for the week, and they bid. Now, Colin Tizard again, who won the Gold Cup on Friday, and he is a slightly smaller trainer. He still has a horse in his yard, as he points out. Flemings Hill arrived after winning an Irish point-to-point for 480,000 sterling. So there's a lot of money being spent.
Horse won anything back?
Well, Flemings, it's early days for him. It's early days, but he will be under pressure. Like Finian's Oscar, who flopped during the week, it was 250 grand. So that's out of the price range of your 6 lads getting together after a few pints and waking up having accidentally bought a horse.
It's right from personal experience.
Yeah. You're not going to wake up in the morning, I don't think, and figure out, Jesus, I'm after buying a fifth of a horse for 400 grand last night. So those people probably have been priced out of it in terms of success, and it is a valid point. But I think it's just a role reversal for us, that we are used to being the outsiders and to being the underdogs. Like if you were to like characterize the Irish sporting story, it would be an underdog one, whereas now in racing we are the opposite. We are the overlords that are sort of maybe ruining it for everyone else. But I think there's people in the game who can probably get used to that.
Who else is writing about Cheltenham? Eamon Sweeney loves to write about the horses.
Yeah, Fergie McDonnell as well, and the
romance of it. Tommy Conlon talks through a story from watching ITV, which I actually thought the ITV coverage was very good.
Yeah, it was
It
decent.
gets the balance right of an incident between Matt Chapman and Tony McCoy. I had read sort of about this. I didn't realise the full extent of how hard Matt Chapman, who is sort of a Marmite figure in racing.
Well, Matt Chapman is like the court jester figure, really.
I thought he was preposterous. Like, he was going for the John McCreary thing, was he?
Well, a bit of that, but I think what happened, really what it boils down to was, and I think there is, like in every sport, and we experience it as a media point of view, you know, if you're critical of someone, well, how many games have you played, how many caps have you won, you know, so on. And, you know, in the sport of racing in particular, you know, how many winners have you ridden? And when it's such a brutal sport that jockeys put their life on the line all the time, I can understand why they would be protective of their own when they're getting a bit of criticism. And what happened in this instance was ultimately AP McCoy still working for JP McManus, having previously been his retained jockey. JP McManus' horse called Glenlow was beaten narrowly on Thursday in the Pertemps after a big gamble, and Barry Geraghty, you know, a lot of people were critical of his performance. He was beaten narrowly and he could have done more. Chapman articulated this point in strong terms. He wasn't happy with McCoy and Luke Harvey both saying any criticism of this is nonsense. And as Tommy Conlon points out, come on AP and Luke, you challenge. Every punter watching that race would have said if Barry Geraghty didn't sit like he did, this was coming into the last where he was a bit cautious and the horse made a mistake, he would have won. Now it's all very well sitting like that if you don't make a mistake, but the only thing that beat Glenlow there was the mistake at the final hurdle. Without that mistake he would categorically have won. And in many ways Chapman's role is to articulate the punter's voice, to see what the guy throwing his docket at home is saying. And a lot of people were out there, and I mean, I backed the horse myself.
So did I.
But McCoy just wasn't having it. He wasn't having it at all. And I mean, Tommy, I think he doesn't really offer his full opinion, but I think you can read through it that he probably is with Chapman more so. He points out that Geraghty afterwards described the horse as a big baby. He just looked around and lost a bit of momentum. Tommy points out, well, Glenlow was a 7-year-old. The horse that beat it, Delta Work, is 5 now. He's a Giggins 10 horse. Some national hunt horses are very slow to mature, but that's beside the point. But anyway, McCoy ended up saying Barry Geraghty's ridden a lot more winners, he said, than the clown who just asked the question. And that was the end of that. But like Chapman is the
he's a big clownish.
He is. I mean, that's his role.
Tommy refers to him as the self-proclaimed punter's friend, and he's shouting and hollering, and
he's not everyone's cup of tea.
No,
but I think
there's a bravery though in taking on somebody of the personality of Tony McCoy, and anyone who's ever followed his career or say watched the documentary on McCoy would know he's pretty unique individual. He doesn't suffer fools. He's maybe not quite as far as Roy Keenan not suffering fools. He's probably on the Ronan O'Gara kind of level. He'll take you down like that.
He's
to turn around and say McCoy used to ride for the pipe team. They had a bloke called Chester Barnes. He used to carry Pipey's bags, clean his shoes. Now McCoy does that for JP McManus. That's what he does.
Yeah, exactly. And then he actually threw to him and said, now, because this was ahead of this race, and there was McManus money in the ring on his horses, and McCoy had been quiet. And Chapman did finish his sign off by saying, now, shoe cleaner, which one is JP lumped on? And it did shoot the camera to McCoy, stony faced. It was good. I was watching that particular moment, and really what it comes down to is it was good TV.
Yeah,
you know, and this is the
showbiz, baby.
Whether you like it or not, it was actually good TV in that point. And I think racing sometimes needs that, because it can be a world that's hard to penetrate from the outside. Everyone knows everyone. They'll close ranks, you know, they will defend each other in any circumstances, and someone who's from outside that sort of circle having a bit of a pop, I'm okay with it. You know, it
increases his profile now anyways.
Well, it did increase his profile. Although Chapman, it must be said, off the back of ITV Racing, he ended up on Dancing on Ice.
He only lasted a week.
One episode and he was done, because it became a story at the time. Nathan maybe have a look, but his style didn't really
What's wrong with dancing
transfer to the ice dancing world.
I'm not quite at Joe Malloy, you know, ignoring Tiger and the golf while watching Room to Improve in said level.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
A little bit earlier on, he's denied it all, but anyways, that's another
obviously had it recorded, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course, skipping the ads.